Gil Capps, managing editor of the Golf Channel, was there. And, Gil, I got to imagine that it was a very interesting feeling being there and watching Jordan Spieth, the defending champion, who seemed like he was well on his way to making it back-to-back, which would have been only the fifth person to do so. What was it like being there to witness this kind of going down, his meltdown on 12?
I still think they're trying to pump oxygen back into the air there at Augusta National. A little context on this, Mike. I mean, almost every great has had something like this happen at some point during their careers. They've blown a significantly late in a round in an event where it looked like they were going to go on to win. And in fact, we're looking through the history of the Masters, and the one that was most similar to what we saw yesterday was actually 1959 when Art Wall, who was a very good player, I think won double-digit times on tour, won, but it was Arnold Palmer. He gave it away that day, very similar to Spieth. He put a ball in the water on 12, made it 6. He tried to come back, just like Spieth. He birdied 13 and 15, and then wound up bogeying 17. Exactly like Jordan Spieth, and the headlines that next day in the papers were more, Arnold Palmer blew it instead of Art Wall won, which is the same thing we're talking about today. More talking about Jordan Spieth. The difference in this one, though, I think, Mike, was how quick it happened. You don't usually see things turn that quickly in golf. The Spieth is sitting there on the 10th tee, 5-shot lead, 9 holes to play, and everybody's writing, the headlines the next day. Spieth's the first player to do this. He's the youngest player to do that, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's 45 minutes later, he's trailing by 3. An 8-shot swing and about a 45-minute time span. It's very unusual for the game of golf. And it was certainly an odd feeling there, especially at Augusta National Field. It was a very, very close crowd yesterday.
Sure was, Gil, and as you mentioned, you don't see that too often. In about a 45-minute span, Spieth looked like he was walking away with his back-to-back green jacket. Instead, he's got to hand it off to Danny Willett, who finishes 5 under yesterday to win the Masters. Tell our listeners more about Willett. Who is he, and can we expect his name to become a household name in the world of golf now?
On our NBC coverage the last month at the round, Danny Willett was Vincent right to the very end, made a bogey on the 72nd hole when he needed to make birdie to tie Adam Scott. He's from England. He actually came over and played 2 years of college golf in the USN in Jacksonville State in Alabama, Division II school. Come up the ranks, was a Walker Cup player. Really kind of a guy who didn't come from really well-off means, and I played into maybe a little bit of an Ian Poulter type, kind of hard Scrabble. It's not quite as out there sometimes with Ian and his comments and his attitude, but a great all-around game. And David Faraday said about him back in March, he has a little evil in him. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Has a little of that chip on his shoulder, and he played very well last year in majors, and when we see him, and no surprise at all that he won. And kudos to him, for winning too, because I think going back to Jordan, we see players, and we even see sports teams when they get a big lead. They kind of become conservative and defensive. And Jordan even talked about that yesterday after his round. That he maybe should have stayed a little more aggressive on 10 and 11. And it's just human nature. It's hard to stay that way. But I think what it also does is when you get that big lead, suddenly you kind of lose your focus a little bit and your purpose. And there's no sense of urgency because Jordan made bogey on 10 and made bogey on 11. But, right, it wasn't. Those are hard holes anyway, and it's not that big a deal, but in a sense, it was. When you have a chaser like Willett, he's exactly the opposite. He said after the round he had a goal in mind, when he saw Jordan up there, he needed to get to 7 under. Now, he didn't get to 7. He wanted to get into 5, but he has a goal. He has a purpose and a focus. He has a sense of urgency in what he needs to do, opposite of the guy with the lead. And you saw that in play yesterday, where the chaser, was the one who was the aggressor, and the one who in the end came out on top from the guy who had been leading.
Gil Capps is with us, managing editor of the Golf Channel, and Gil, Willett bogey-free for his final 21 holes of the Masters. He's just the 5th Masters champion since World War II to do that on the Sunday. So I guess moving forward here, you have Willett, you've got Rory, who's still looking now for that Grand Slam for his career. Jordan Spieth, I guess this sets up great narrative for the rest of the majors, but going into the Masters next year, which I said did not have great ratings for Sunday, but it should set up a very big rebound story for Jordan Spieth going into the next three majors and then into next year's Masters as well.
Well, and I mentioned 1959 Arnold Palmer, and he was actually the defending champion that year. And what happened? Well, the very next year, 1960, he came back and won again. So it is going to set up a great narrative for next year. But it also does, it'll be interesting how Jordan comes back from this, because he struggled to tee green a little bit coming into the Masters. And I think maybe it mentioned in the last week, we were interested if it was smoke and mirrors on the weekend, and maybe it was there a little bit. He flown his coach in Saturday night to try to tighten up a couple things for Sunday, and in the end, not being able to hit greens in regulation consistently hurt him there in the end. But, Danny Willett is going to propel him, I think. McIlroy, Day, Dustin Johnson, a lot of great players. And, the one thing I will say, it's pretty big the joke. It's an even number year, which means it's the Ryder Cup come the last week in September, first week in October. And every even number of years, seems like the Europeans who struggled the year before, all of a sudden, somehow, some way, magically, they start playing well and winning events and on top of leaderboards. That seemed to be what happened yesterday with Willett and Westwood and Paul Casey and young Englishman Fitzpatrick, and McIlroy wasn't too far off, et cetera. So I think it's going to be a great season in golf.
Sure should be, and in June we'll have the U.S. Open, in July the Open Championship, and then August the PGA, so we got 3 more to go. Hopefully, Gil, we will have your insight on all of them as they get a little closer. Thanks for being a part of the show. Hopefully you enjoyed your stay at Augusta this year.
It's a great place. It's a bucket list place, too. If anybody listening never been to a Masters, you have to go and tick it off your list one time.
We hope to do that someday here on the Sports Bash. Gil, appreciate it, pal.
Cheers, Mike. Thank you so much.